Hey everybody, welcome back. So in my last video I did a shootout between Cura, IdeaMaker, and Prusa Slicer to see which one would give us the best top surface layers in kind of an out-of-box experience. My out-of-box, I couldn't do it exactly. I did have to change the nozzle temperature for the filament, the bed temperature for my printer, and I tried to change default print speeds across all of them, although it was tough to do in Prusa Slicer, but I wanted to kind of equalize them at least in that regard. I didn't really change anything else. So in this video, I'd like to do some tweaks, and I have labeled these ST for small tweaks. I'm not going to go in and spend hours printing test blocks and tweaking every experimental settings, and this is also going to be all release version software. There's no alphas or betas or masters or anything in this. So before I go any further, somebody did comment to me that they thought my problem with Cura was that I'm printing at too high a temperature, that 210 is too high and I should lower it to 205. So first let me say I did that. I printed two of them. Two of the test blocks I did in Cura, one at 210 like I did all the others, and one at 205, just because, hey, I love you guys, and I want to try, I actually want to follow through on the suggestions you make. But before I go any further with that, this problem with Cura with these gaps in the top layer is nothing new to me, and other people have the problem as well. Now, not everybody does, and I don't know how many people do and how many don't. It might be only people who try and print things in a shape like that. I don't know. But if you go to Google and you type in Cura gaps in top layer, you will find a bunch of different people having the problem, a bunch of different suggested cures, and you'll even find a thread that I created on the IdeaMaker forums over 2 years ago under my username there, ThirdPig, 3RDPIG, where I illustrated the exact problem with a very similar test block. In fact, it may have been this same one. And I got a bunch of suggestions, and while I could make it almost go away, I could never really get rid of it completely. And let me show you the problem here. If you look at the small hole in the center here, see if the camera will focus for me. If you look at that small, and if I can get the light on it just right, you'll see that there are gaps in that, right around that inner circle. You'll see those gaps right around in there. That's my problem, and sometimes they'll appear around the outer perimeter here where this top skin doesn't quite meet the perimeter. That's the problem, and I have tweaked the bloody hell out of Cura, and I have finally mostly cured it, but it did take a lot of work, and it did take a lot of testing to get it there, and to me that doesn't fall under the heading of small tweaks. So, with all that being said, let's jump into the software. I'm going to try avoiding going through all the settings this time. I'm only going to show you what I changed. Oh, and for full disclosure, I did change my bottom layers on all of them from 3 to 1 just to make it go faster and to use less filament, because I am printing these off my odds and ends of rolls that have very little left on them. So to avoid having them all be in different colors, I tried to save a little filament in that regard as well. Oh, and also in Cura, I did lower the acceleration and jerk down to some kind of reasonable level. By default, Cura has the acceleration at 3,000 millimeters per second squared and the jerk at 20 millimeters per second, and that is violent on my printers. I have had layer shifting problems and other things, and so I think it's 510 in IdeaMaker, and Prusa Slicer seems to be pretty much the same because it is not violent at all. So I have lowered them down in Cura, I think, to 510 or 505. Doesn't seem to affect the top layers at all. So with that being said, let's go over and let's take a look at the software. Okay, so let's take a look at Cura first, because again, it is the one I am the most familiar with. It was also the worst in the last test, the out-of-box test. So what are the changes I made in an attempt to get rid of those, not just in attempts to get rid of those gaps, but also to try and make the top layer smoother and more uniform? So I did add one top surface skin layer. And what the top surface skin layer does, if you have 3 top layers and you have one top surface skin layer, it takes the topmost of those 3 layers and sets it to these parameters that you have set to a top surface skin. So one top surface skin. I am down here under, where is it? under material, I have changed the top surface skin flow to 105. Again, attempt to close that little gap up. So I also set the top surface skin speed of 15 millimeters per second. And as I mentioned before, I did turn the acceleration down from 3,000 to 500 and the print jerk from 20 to 5. Retraction I didn't change, I left alone. Except here is combing mode. I did change combing mode from all to not in skin. So that should help again with the gap to some degree. All of this I left alone. Oh, wait a minute. I did set the top surface skin line width to 0.3. So those are the changes in Cura. You can see I called this profile extra fast, small tweaks. Let's go to IdeaMaker and see what I did in IdeaMaker. Now in IdeaMaker, my problem before wasn't any kind of gaps or anything like that. It was just, and it had a fairly uniform top surface. There were some extra lines here and there, but it was solid and just kind of a uniform but coarse top layer. So let's click Start Slicing and edit on my settings here. And again, I changed the bottom solid to bottom layers to 1 instead of 3 just to make things go faster. I did turn on top surface solid fill. Now that's like top skin layers in Cura. I have, if you look over here, I have 3 top solid fill layers, 3 top surfaces. One of them is a top surface, instead of top solid fill, it's a top surface solid fill, and just like Cura, it uses a separate set of parameters for that. I changed the flow rate to 105, and I changed the extrusion width to 0.7 to 75%. 75% of 0.4 is 0.3, so that, just like Cura, that gives me a 0.3 line width for my top surface layer. Other than that, I didn't do anything on IdeaMaker. That was all I did for these small tweaks, was add that top surface layer in it. So let's close that because it won't let me minimize it until I do, and let's go look at Prusa Slicer. Now, Prusa Slicer, honestly, had the best of the top surfaces, but it had that stringing in it, and that stringing and those, what looked like a Z-hop on the inside of that big circle was just not at all acceptable. So because it had retraction set to 2 millimeters, I changed it to 5 millimeters, a retraction speed of 45 and a de-retraction speed or prime speed of 45. So that's the changes I made there. Also over under print settings, I checked avoid crossing perimeters, something one of my commenters mentioned, which thank you for that. I did check that, and those are the only changes I made in Prusa Slicer. So with that being done, let's go look at the printed parts and let's see what we got. Okay, so we did print these. Let's get a look at them. Let's start with Cura again. And here is the small block in Cura. I've tried repositioning the lights, and hopefully I will have better light on these than I have. I've got 6 lights in this room, and no matter what I do, I still get shadows on it. Now on this small block, you will see that Cura did a damn nice job. There are no noticeable gaps or cracks, no artifacting, no stringing. Honestly, it looks really good. If Cura did this all the time, I'd be pretty darn happy with it. Yeah, pretty darn good. So let's look at the 2-tiered one, and this is the one printed at 210 degrees, as was the smaller block, and has all the rest of them other than the one Cura one I printed at 205. And you'll see Cura has raised its ugly head again with the gaps and the cracks. You'll see a gap right in there where once again, the top skin did not meet the perimeter, and you'll see it down in this lower corner down here. And I can actually flex that perimeter. I'm hoping you're seeing that. Usually it looks to me like when I'm filming this that I'm not showing things, and then I go look at it later and I go, wow, that really showed that well. But anyway, those cracks are back. Those gaps are back that I have always had a problem with in Cura. So let's look at the one I printed at 205 instead of 210 and see if the problem went away. And you'll see this one is marked 205. And let's take a look. And you will see that while the problem has moved, it is still there. And it's hard to get it to show it where I want to show you isn't in the shadows. You'll see it around that perimeter there, and you'll see it around the circular perimeter down here. So while the top surface itself does look really nice, and I think there's a little bit of it. No, there isn't. It's mainly in that circle, the large circle in the lower left-hand corner where you'll see that gap. And I don't know why Cura does that. No other slicer does it. Otherwise, the surface looks really nice. That's Cura. Let's look at IdeaMaker. IdeaMaker, excuse me, I got dust and dirt on just about everything here. As you'll see, IdeaMaker leaves a pretty darn nice surface with those settings. It does have a little bit more artifacting. There is a few extra cross lines in places where you wouldn't think they should be. But all in all, it is solid and it's pretty nice. Let's look at the two-tiered one, because sometimes it shows things the others do not show. And again, a very nice solid surface, no gaps, no cracks. The skin meets the wall everywhere. And yeah, just a little bit more cross lines and artifacting than I would like to see. Kind of look like Frankenstein's face. It is solid and it is smooth, but it could look better. And maybe there is a, travel avoid perimeters in this, like there in IdeaMaker, like there is in Prusa Slicer. I looked around for it and admit I didn't find it, but I'm not the most familiar person in the world with IdeaMaker, and unfortunately there isn't really a lot of help for it online like there is with Cura and Prusa Slicer. I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe it's not well liked or not well used, commonly used, I don't know. So Prusa Slicer next. And you will note that I now have none of the stringing and artifacting, none of that Z-hop with the stringing that I had in the other one. God, I wish I could get rid of that one shadow in this. Whoops, sorry about that. That's probably not the best way to do it. But man, that is a nice, nice, nice top surface. About the only thing left is this like lawnmower stripe back and forth this way, where I guess it would be the reflectivity of the short lines that meet the hole is not the same reflectivity as those lines that go all the way across. Not sure what could be done about that. I know whatever it is, I can't do it. Oh, at least I haven't figured it out yet. And here is the two-tiered version, and we're looking at exactly the same thing. Let me get my probably coffee grounds or something on it. Let me get that off and let me show it to you. And it has some of those little artifacting lines, like kind of crisscross lines like we saw in IdeaMaker, but they are much, much less pronounced in Prusa Slicer than they were in IdeaMaker. And that is a very, very, very nice top surface. So I'm very pleased with that. I may have to start using this program more than I have in the past. It put the Z-hop right in the center there, in the front, which I don't like, but that's an easy fix, and that has nothing to do with top layers. So what's next? Well, there are certainly far more tweaks available in Cura. I know how to do them. I can and have done completely away with that crack in the top layer, but we're not talking about simple tweaks. We're talking about really digging deep into a lot of different Cura settings. And so I think we're going to go there in the next video. We're going to go in all those tweaks I did where I printed 25 or 30 of those small blocks and probably 10 or 12 of these, trying to get rid of that and trying to get smooth top layers. And I'm going to go to alpha and beta and master versions if necessary. There is something called monotonic top surface layers in Prusa Slicer. In one of the alpha or beta versions, I'm going to find that. And I'm going to dig around looking for more information on IdeaMaker. As I said, there didn't seem to be a lot of online information to help me that I could find with a quick search. I'm going to dig a little bit deeper. I'm also going to try some of the changes I've made in Cura and in Prusa Slicer and IdeaMaker and see if that helps. If you guys out there, if any of you are really knowledgeable with an IdeaMaker, please let me know what you think I could do both to make the top surface smoother and to get rid of those artifacting lines, those crisscross lines across my top surfaces. Because other than that, it's a really good looking top surface. So that's it for now. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you, along with me, maybe learned something, and maybe you can teach me something. So please hit notifications, like and subscribe and all that stuff, and I will catch you guys the next time. Bye for now.